Okay, so in the previous lesson, you saw how we can switch between different modes when we are working with the figure and the armature. So what we're going to do now is start to take a closer look at this concept of using vertex groups to deform the vertices. So go ahead and click on the figure. Now go to the data tab over here and go ahead and create 5 empty vertex groups. So just click on the plus sign, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. Now we're going to have to rename these vertex groups to the same name as some of these bones so we can use them to deform the vertices. Now go ahead and click on the devarm.lower.l bone first. Make sure that you're in pose mode to do this. Hover your mouse over here, do Control C, click on the figure, double click, do Control V, and press Enter. Now click on this bone, do Control C, click on the figure, double click, do Control V, and Enter. Now click on the shoulder bone, do Control C, click on this figure, double click, and do Control V, and press Enter. Now click on this chest bone, do Control C, click on the figure, double click, do Control V, and press Enter. Now click on the neck bone, do Control C, click on the figure, double click, and do Control V, and press Enter. So right now all we have are empty vertex groups. No vertices have been assigned to these vertex groups. Now, as you already know, in order to even use this concept of vertex groups with bones, we would have to click on this figure, drag it onto the armature, and then choose with armature deform. Go to the modifiers tab and move up the armature deform. Now, in order to understand how this concept works with vertex groups, we're going to have to click this button which says display the modifier in edit mode. Go ahead and click it. Basically what this allows you to do is that when you have the figure selected and when you go to edit mode, you can actually see how the position of these vertices are going to change when you have this button selected. So you'll see how this works a little later on. Go ahead and click on the data tab over here. Okay? And go ahead and zoom in, do shift middle mouse button, and click on this vertex over here. Now do file and save. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is understand what exactly happens to a vertex when you start to assign vertex groups to it. Now, in order to understand this correctly, we actually have to understand what exactly are we seeing visually inside the 3D view when we are working with vertices on our figure. To understand this, go ahead and click on this vertex and go ahead and open up this panel. You can see that when you have the vertex selected, you can see the position of the vertex. Now, the position that is being displayed over here about this vertex is simply showing how far this vertex is from its origin point. Now go ahead and zoom out, do shift middle mouse button to pan up. This is the origin point, what this vertex is talking about. Now, as you already understand, when it comes to the origin point, this origin point actually belongs to this object. And if you open this up, as I've shown you already, that the vertices, edges, and faces that define your 3D model, that information is kept separate in a mesh data block. So this is the object data block and this is your mesh data block. and this mesh data block is linked to this object data block. Now, in order to understand this a lot better, when you are in edit mode on your figure, just press the A key to select everything, X, and go ahead and delete the vertices. Now go ahead and switch back to object mode. So this origin point belongs to the object data block. And now over here you can see that we can see the location, rotation, and scale of this origin point. And if we click on this object data tab, we can see the same exact information over here. So this information is simply being displayed at all times, which is this information over here. So now when you press the S key to scale, press the R key to rotate, press the G key to move, you're simply moving this object data block's origin point. Now when you switch to edit mode and press Ctrl Z a few times, you can bring the vertices back. Now notice that the vertices are rotated. This is because this mesh data block is attached to this figure, and this mesh data block is attached to this origin point, meaning that it will do whatever the origin point does. This is why the figure is showing up as a scale rotated and moved. Okay, so this is the first concept I want you to understand. Go ahead and now reload that file. So notice that when we are in object mode and when we open this up, we can see the location, rotation, and scale of the origin point of the object data block. Go ahead and open this up. Now when we switch to edit mode and have this vertex selected, we can see the position of this vertex. So what Blender is doing is going directly to this mesh data block, digging the information out about this vertex and displaying it over here, how far it is away from its origin point. Now we already know that when we click on the object data tab, we can only see the location, rotation, and scale of its origin point. When we click on this data tab over here, which belongs to the mesh data block, we cannot see the information about the position of this vertex here. This information is only going to be displayed over here. So what exactly does this mean now? Okay, so this means that if we have this vertex selected and click over here on the vertex group and click on assign, the vertex group that it's going to get assigned to this vertex, the information that is going to be displayed over here under vertex weights is coming directly from this mesh data block. So go ahead and click on all these vertex groups and assign them. Okay, notice that we can only assign the vertex groups, and we are on the data tab that belongs to this mesh data block. So when you are clicked on this vertex, in order to see what vertex groups are assigned to this vertex, you can only see it under this panel, just like how we could only see the position of this vertex. It's never going to display what vertex groups are assigned to this vertex in any of these tabs or these panels for this data block that belongs to the mesh data block. Okay, now so you understand this concept now. Okay, so go ahead and now just X out all these things over here. Now what I'm going to show you over here is an understanding of what exactly is going on in the vertex groups panel. Okay, so the way to understand this is by simply switching to object mode over here. Okay, zoom out and click your mouse over here, do Shift A and add add a cube over here and press the S key to just simply scale it down. Okay, now this object that you're seeing over here is the same type of object which is our figure. So this is the object data block, and if we open this up, this is the mesh data block. The vertices that define, or the vertices, edges, and faces that define what this object looks like. Okay? So this means that if we click on this figure, go to its data block over here, you'll notice that we can actually click over here and switch the figure to the cube, right? And the reason the cube is even looking like this is because we have modifiers on. So go ahead and turn off everything over here and you'll see that it's just a cube. So this is what this concept is of data blocks in Blender. As long as the data blocks are of the same type, you can switch between their data blocks or link between them, right? Notice that over here it's only going to let you link between objects of the same type of data block. Go ahead and switch back to the figure, click over here, now turn everything back on. Okay, so that's the second concept I want you to understand. Now go ahead and switch to edit mode, and we have this vertex selected. Okay, now go ahead and click on the data over here. So the information that we are seeing over here belongs to the mesh data block. Okay, so what Blender is going to do is, if you switch to object mode over here, click on the plus sign, click on the plus sign, click on the plus sign, all this information that you're seeing over here is going to get saved in the mesh data block for this figure. Okay, now the only difference here is that when it comes to vertex groups, and this is the only type of object that Blender does this with, is that the name of the vertex groups are actually being kept on the object data block and not the mesh data block. But everything over here, the names, all these things that we've created are going to be kept in the mesh data block. Okay, so how does this work though then? If you go to edit mode and click over here on this vertex, right, basically the way this works is that the vertex groups that we have created are actually named internally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is an example, okay? But the actual name of this vertex group, Blender keeps it in the object data block. Okay, now we can prove this is because if we switch over to object mode over here, click on this data and now switch back to the cube, notice what's going to happen. Everything else over here disappeared is because that information was not in the cube's data block. Of course, the cube never had vertex groups, and we can click on the cube to confirm this. But when we click on the figure, we can still see the names of the vertex groups because these names are actually kept in the figure data block, not the mesh data block. Okay, so there's a link that Blender does between the mesh data block and the object data block that has to do with the names of the vertex groups. Now, as to the reason why it does this, it actually has to do with linked objects, because linked objects will obviously share the same type of vertex groups, but Blender gives you the ability to name the vertex groups differently between linked objects. This is why it does it this way. Okay, so I just want you to be aware of this concept. Go ahead and go back and just reload the file. Anyways, so now you understand what's going on over here. Okay, so now when you click on this vertex and click on dev.arm.lower.l and click on assign, here you can see that when we assign a vertex group to it, it's going to start to show up in the vertex weights table. Okay, so over here you can see that it shows dev.arm.lore.l. This is the vertex group that we've just assigned over here. Now, when you assign a vertex group, if you actually assign all of these vertex groups to this over here, you'll notice that it's going to show up in the same exact order that is being displayed over here. Now, when you click on this, you'll notice that it's also switching over here. This means that you can click on the vertex groups over here and it'll also switch over here. Now, because these vertex groups have the same name as the bones, we can go over here and sort them by bone hierarchy. It will also display the same thing over here, meaning that it's actually displaying the parent-child relationship based on bone chains. So the shoulder is the parent of the arm.upper L, and the arm.upper.L is the parent of arm.lower.L. Same thing with the chest is the parent of the neck. Okay. Now we know that the shoulder is the child of the chest, but it's not going to do it this way. It's just strictly based on bone chains. Now, of course, you can sort this by a name too. But if you are here on bone hierarchy, if you want to do a quick sort, a temporary sort, just click over here. And this is off, this is on, this is inverse. It's pretty straightforward as to how this concept is working. So go ahead and now reload this file, and I'll see you in the next lesson where we'll understand this a lot better.